everyone, my name is Allie and welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my May wrap up. So I totally meant to film this video about a week ago, but I've had a really rough 2 weeks. We don't really need to talk about that all the way, at least not in this video, but I did just kind of want to point that out just to be like, that's what has happened in the past 2 weeks. That's why I haven't uploaded in so long. So just wanted to make that apparent. But it is June now. I believe it's June 7th when I'm filming this video, and that means we are already in Pride Month. I will say that I have not finished a book yet, but we are working on it. We're trying not to get into like a huge slump like I was in about a month ago. So we're working hard on that. We're trying to get everything, you know, kind of like working and moving. So just keep me in your thoughts at this time. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about the books that I read in May. Let me see how many I actually ended up reading. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books, 8, 9 books. I don't know if I'm counting this one as my 9th book or not. Yeah, I'll count it, why not? Okay, so I read 9 books in the month of May, and that's pretty good. And 3 of the books that I read were books that I physically owned, which I am so proud of myself for. I've really been trying super hard to read books that I physically own, and I did a pretty good job this month. But I will say that through my endeavors of reading books that I physically own, I have realized that a lot of them are duds, so that's a little bit of a spoiler alert. So because I have 9 books to get through for this wrap up, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. And the first book that I ended up reading in May was Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. But I got this for Christmas when my mom took me to the thrift store and let me pick out a couple of books. And I was super excited to find this in paperback and in such amazing condition. It's absolutely gorgeous. But unfortunately, I did not end up loving this book the way I thought I was going to. I've been intrigued by this book for quite a while because I remember when it came out, a lot of people had some like very mixed feelings about this book. Some people really did love it, but I did notice a lot of people were kind of like meh about this book or a little bit iffy about it. So I was really intrigued to finally get my hands on it and get to experience it myself. But I did end up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. It just did not blow me away in the way that I wanted it to. And even though it kind of gave the vibes of sort of like a young adult literary fiction novel, it just didn't end up working for me for some reason. Basically, this book is about Penny and Sam, and they are both now in college, and they end up meeting each other and kind of hitting it off pretty instantly and decide to start this sort of text relationship. They are both kind of like semi-awkward people. Like, they don't really want to like socialize a lot with other people, but they do like texting each other. I didn't really end up liking either of these characters. I don't really have a lot to say about this book because it was such a non-event of a book. I feel like nothing really happened. I could totally see why these characters would like each other though, because they're the same level of insufferable, and also the same level of kind of like edgy humor, if that makes sense. So yeah, those are all my thoughts about Emergency Contact. I mean, go ahead and try it out if you really want to, if you're super intrigued. But I think that this is definitely a book that you can skip, especially if you have similar interests or tastes to me. I feel like this is just a book that you can kind of write off, and you know, it was a book. It was definitely a book. The second book that I ended up finishing in May was Happy Place by Emily Henry, which this book will be super easy to talk about because I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And it's probably my second favorite Emily Henry book. This book gave me all of the vibes that I have been craving lately. I've really been wanting to read more books that are set at the beach, especially at this time of year. And also I am in California and it has been so dreary, so gray, so ugly outside lately. And I've been craving sun and the beach and all of that fun stuff. So it was really fun to actually get to read Happy Place, get my hands on it, get to read it physically, and just absolutely fall in love with this book. I even made a playlist for this book, so if you want to check that out, I will leave it as a link down below. I highly recommend checking out this playlist. It is so good, if I do say so myself. It's amazing. But I loved Happy Place so much. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. And I feel like if you are a fan of beach read, you might also really like Happy Place. They kind of give off very similar vibes, at least in my opinion. And I also feel like it's a really good book for those of us who are in our 20s, who are going through a big transition in your life, who kind of need to figure out where you want your life to go, and also the kind of person who's trying to deconstruct the expectations that other people have for them, or just trying to figure out their life outside of those expectations. This is the perfect book for you. It literally, that's the theme of this story, and it's so good. I loved Harriet so much. I also loved Win so much. I really enjoyed getting to kind of unravel the pieces of their relationship and seeing where it went wrong, seeing what happened between them, and what kind of transpired in order to put them in these positions that they're in at the beginning of the book, because you kind of get these flashbacks to when they first met, when they were in college, and throughout their relationship, and then towards the end of that relationship. And I love that you get those bits of information piece by piece, and you kind of have to work for it. I thought that this was really well done and really well paced. And I loved this friendship and this friend group so much. Every single character was so interesting and so well developed, and I just loved seeing them all interact together and have this friendship that they've had since college. And it was so sweet. I loved every single character in this book so much. But this book also made me really want to go and hang out at a beach house and like stay there for a couple of days or even like a week or whatever. I just think that that'd be so much fun. And I want to live out all of my Happy Place fantasies and go to the beach. And I don't know, I'm just yearning for sun at this moment. So I loved it so much. I know that this is also another kind of book that is very divided. A lot of people did not like this book, but then also a lot of people absolutely loved this book. So it really kind of just depends on the kind of person that you are and where you might fall in the opinions of this book. But like I said, it is my second favorite Emily Henry book. For me, it goes beach read, Happy Place, book lovers, and then people we meet on vacation. But I mean, I don't know, that could change as I start to reread these books, so we'll see. The next book that I read was actually one that I ended up DNFing really late into this book, and I am so bummed that I didn't like it. But I mean, I have been reading so many YA fantasies lately and really trying to like recapture my love for this genre, which I feel like I have done, even though I would say probably half of them have been duds. I just really remember why I love YA fantasy so much, but I also remember what I don't like about YA fantasy. So I ended up reading Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian, which is really funny because I have 2 other Laura Sebastian books that I need to read, so I'm not totally writing off this author quite yet, but I did DNF this book pretty late into reading it. I don't remember exactly where I DNF'd it. I'm gonna see if I wrote a review. Okay, so I DNF'd it at the 69% mark, which is pretty far into the book. Typically, I really only count DNFs if I feel like I put a lot of effort into reading it. And this one, I definitely felt that. Like, I was struggling through this book so much. And really the main issue that I had with this book is, which is something that I find that I have an issue with a lot of fantasy books, even in YA, and that is the intense fat phobia. Like, it was really bad. It was worse than I could have imagined, honestly. It kind of reminded me of Ever the Hunted in that way. If you remember when I read that book about a month or so ago, that one also had a lot of fat phobia. But this one had 2 tropes that really irk me and really are just a sign for me to put the book down. And that is, first of all, the sexual predator fat person trope. This has shown up so many times across books. And I don't know why. Like, I know why, but I also cannot stand that authors feel comfortable writing that. That's such an evil, horrible trope to engage with. And especially when like the only fat characters that you're writing about are sexual predators. Like, that really just goes to show what you subconsciously think of fat people. And I'm going to be really generous in saying subconsciously that like you did not mean to write that, or you aren't like actively thinking that about fat people, but like that's something that has been socially ingrained in you. And and the reason I talk about it, the reason I want to bring it up is because I want authors to engage with this and be like, oh, I didn't even realize that I was writing that. But now that I know, I don't want to write that anymore. I don't want to like perpetuate that stigma. So that's why I'm saying I'm not completely writing Laura Sebastian off. I'm not going to completely like unhaul all of her books. This is one of her first ones. This is really early on. And so I'm hoping and praying that the newer books that I have from her don't have this kind of sentiment in those books, and if they do, then I'm just gonna unhaul them and like call it a day, and I will know not to engage with her books after this. But I mean, I don't want to completely write her off at this moment. And the second trope that showed up in regards to fat phobia was the trope of like the fat person is so fat that they break the chair. And in this book, it's not necessarily that like he actually broke the chair, it's that the chair broke, I believe, from like magic. But like everybody, it's supposed to like be made to seem like he broke the chair because he's so fat. And I hated that. I hated that so much. That was the worst. That was awful. I hate that trope. I hate it. Because like it's like, are you 5 years old? That's funny to you? Like that's what you put in here for like a little laughter moment, a little like ha ha, let's laugh at the villain because he's so fat he broke the chair. Like, that's sus to me. That's like really sus. So yeah, I had to DNF this book. I don't even care to talk about what it's actually about because I don't think that like you should read this book. I'm not going to recommend it. I'm not going to try to, you know, get you just to, like, to read it to make up your own mind. Like, I mean, I guess you can do that if you want, but I will not be promoting this book on my channel. It's not good. And even without the fat phobic tropes, it was just a very basic, boring YA fantasy. It was fine. It was like whatever. The next book that I read in May was The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. And I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought that this was really, really well done, and there was only like a few moments within this book where I wasn't fully engaged, and I felt like the narrative just wasn't super clear, and that's why I didn't end up giving it a 5 stars. And I also just like it didn't like give me that like favorite book feeling that I get when I read a book that I absolutely fall in love with. But the reason why I really, really enjoyed this book was because it is the pinnacle of whimsical fantasy. And for me, whimsical fantasy is greater than, above literally any other kind of fantasy. I love anything like Caraval, Once Upon a Broken Heart, The Midnight Bargain, Where Dreams Descend, like anything like that. That is my cup of tea. That's the kind of fantasy book that I like, and this one definitely fits into that very niche specific subgenre. It is very whimsical and I loved it. And it's set in this like underwater kingdom, and it's so beautifully written, and I loved the characters. And I actually ended up reading this book because it was in this Instagram post of like books to read if you loved Once Upon a Broken Heart, and this is like absolutely perfect for that. And this is definitely a book that I could see myself going back to in the future and rereading because it was that much fun. And I think that it's the kind of book where if I reread it multiple times, I would get something new from it every single time. I liked the romance, the budding romance within this book. I also really liked the family dynamics in this book as well. I thought that the commentary on family was really well done, and the bonds that were between this family, especially between the siblings, and also her bond with her grandmother. I thought it was so beautiful. And you know me, I love a good family dynamic, and yeah, I just highly recommend this book. Even though it wasn't like a super 5-star read for me, it was still really good. Another book that I ended up DNFing, I know I've been DNFing a lot of books lately, but this one I feel like I also had pretty good reason for DNFing. Maybe not as good as Ash Princess, but I did not like this book, and that was Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. And if you remember my videos from earlier this year, I put this book as one of my most anticipated reads of 2023. I was really excited for this book. I love the cover. I love the idea of it. Basically, it's following this sort of fictional SNL writer, and she's kind of fed up with the way that these kind of like not super attractive comedians on the show end up hooking up with these absolutely beautiful, flawless, gorgeous actresses and singers and whatever. But the female writers and comedians on the show, who aren't quite as attractive either, it doesn't really work for them in the same way. So I thought it was a really interesting premise, and I was excited to see how it would be done. However, I felt like it really didn't hit the mark for me. And I described it as, this is like reading the driest, most unfunny episode of 30 Rock, and I'm not sure if it was intentional or not. The main character is basically Liz Lemon, which is a choice on its own, and every character around her is leagues more interesting. It felt like the author was using the main character as a puppet and soundboard for the most 2016 Tumblr white feminist talking points, and it was genuinely insufferable. Also, for a contemporary romance, there was so much info dumping and half of it didn't sound right. The author was over-explaining every minute detail of what it's like working in a writer's room and how a show like SNL works, as if the audience reading is from another planet and like has never seen SNL. Like, I think we know how SNL works. Like, you don't have to mansplain SNL to us. And what really got me is when the author was like trying to describe a musician's rehearsal, and she was describing it almost as if it was a concert. And I'm like, this is not a concert, this is a rehearsal. Why is he shouting out like, I'm gonna sing this song next and this is what it means to me? And I'm like, it's a rehearsal. Like, that's not how a rehearsal works. Like, I have been like actively in rehearsals and have watched rehearsals. That's not how this works. I will say though that this is my fan theory. I guess I'm not a fan, but this is my theory. And I know a lot of people have different theories. I think that the singer, like the guy who's like the romantic interest, I think that he was based off of John Mayer. I'm just gonna say that right now. His lead single that like he got famous from in the early 2000s in like the fictional book sounds a lot like Your Body is a Wonderland by John Mayer. And I'm like, don't quote me. People were trying to say Jesse McCartney, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense because Jesse McCartney is not nearly as famous as he was in the early or mid 2000s. So why would Jesse McCartney's not going to be on SNL anytime soon? But John Mayer could be on SNL at any point, at any moment, because he is basically just as famous, like maybe a little less famous than he used to be, but like he's still the kind of, you know, musician or a performer or whatever who would get invited to an SNL sort of situation still in 2023. So yeah, I'm not seeing Jesse McCartney. Someone else said Justin Timberlake, and I'm like, this character is meant to be like a musician. Like, he can play the guitar and stuff. Like, that's what he does. That's like what he's known for. Justin Timberlake is known for being in a boy band. Like, that's not the same kind of character. Like, that doesn't make sense. So I firmly stand by that he is meant to be John Mayer. That's my hot take. So yeah, did not like Romantic Comedy. I do not recommend it. The next book that I read was A Dream Life by Claire Masood. And this is a short story. And it actually kind of reminded me of the short story The Garden Party by Catherine Mansfield, which I wrote about in my review. I felt like it was pretty underwhelming though, at the end of the day. It's basically about this young woman and her family. She they're kind of like new money-ish. They're not super rich or anything, but they have definitely recently come into a lot more money than they are used to having. And they end up moving to, I believe, Australia, and it's just kind of about that. It's very underwhelming. I felt like there was supposed to be a bit of a twist, and like you're supposed to be kind of like shocked by the ending, but I just felt so underwhelmed. I just wasn't getting it. I wasn't feeling it, and there's really not much to say about it. I mean, the writing was kind of cool. It was kind of good, but like it wasn't anything to write home about, so not my fave. I feel like that's definitely one that you don't have to even bother reading. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was fine. It was whatever. The next book that I read was absolutely phenomenal. Another 5-star read for this month. I believe I only had 2 5-star reads for the month of May, which is fine. That's not a big deal, but I mean, I really did love this book, and that is Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor, and I loved this book so much. It's another whimsical fantasy book, and I feel like I'm just like collecting these like gems. I love them so much. And I've been waiting to read this book for months. I've been on the waiting list on Libby forever. I didn't realize how popular this book was, but I was literally waiting for so long to finally read this book, and I got it. And it does remind me a lot of Caraval. So basically there is the main character, and she has a younger sister that she has to protect because they are orphans. And there is this Hotel Magnifique, which is basically this traveling hotel that is very hard to get into. You have to have an invitation. It is a very coveted invitation, and everybody wants to go to Hotel Magnifique because this is like a life-changing experience. And so the main character and her sister really want to go, and they end up kind of finagling a way to get into the hotel. But they both have to work for the hotel, so it's a little bit different of an experience compared to like being a guest. But once they end up getting to their jobs and being inside of the hotel, Johnny, which is the main character, quickly discovers their contracts are unbreakable and that beneath the marvelous glamour, the hotel is hiding dangerous secrets. With the vexingly handsome doorman, Belle, as their only ally, Johnny embarks on a mission to unravel the mystery of the magic at the heart of the hotel and free Zosha, her younger sister, and the other staff from the cruelty of the ruthless maitre d'hotel? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce. I don't know how to speak French. Maitre d'hotel? De hotel? I don't remember. It's been a while since I listened to the audiobook, honestly, and so I can't remember exactly how everything's pronounced. To succeed, she'll have to risk everything she loves, but failure would mean a fate worse than never returning back home. I can't read more of the synopsis. This is a really long synopsis, but anyway, it is very much like if you liked Caraval, if you like the Night Circus, this is the perfect kind of book for you. It is so good, and the romance was iconic. I loved Belle so much. He was amazing, and it was like such a funny book for some reason. Like just like the dialogue was so funny to me. The way that these characters interacted with each other was so dramatic and so funny. I just had a grand old time reading this book. However, I will say that if you don't like Caraval, if that's like not your vibe, this is probably not going to be the book for you. It is really silly. It's very whimsical. It like, I wouldn't take it super seriously, but it is such a fun time. I had such a good time reading this book, and I really loved like all of the intricate backstories for all these characters and the way that some of them kind of like entwined and interacted with each other. And I loved the magic, and the magic system was so interesting. And I loved that it's about family as well, about these two sisters, and everybody has this relationship to their family that is so different. And I don't know, there's something about this book that I absolutely loved, and I want to read like 25 more books set in this world. Also in my review I said the bisexual energy radiating off of Belle was iconic. It was everything. This book has quite a few different queer characters, which is really nice to read about, and I don't know, I loved it. It was so good. If you are a fan of those kind of books, I highly recommend it. The second to last book that I read in the month of May was Truly Madly Royally by Debbie Rigaud. And this one is like a contemporary YA romance that I believe came out on the heels of like the Meghan Harry wedding, I believe. It's been a little while. I think it was 2019 when this book came out, maybe 2020. But this was another 3 out of 5 stars for me, but it's kind of a higher 3 out of 5 stars. It's close to a 4-star, but not quite. I thought it was really cute. I thought it was really sweet. There wasn't really a whole lot of conflict in this book. There wasn't really a whole lot of things explored in this book, but it was just like a fun, lighthearted read. And basically it's about this girl. She is in high school, but she is taking some college classes, I believe during the summer or something like that. And she ends up running into the prince from a foreign kingdom. And he is also taking classes at this American college for the summer. And they kind of hit it off pretty quickly and become really good friends, but there is a lot of press surrounding this guy, and she kind of ends up getting caught up in it. Of course, the main character, she is Black, so there's also that layer to the story. I think my biggest gripe with it though is just the fact that like the ending felt so rushed and felt so wrapped up in a neat little bow very quickly. Like his mom is kind of racist. His mom is kind of like a huge bitch to her, and that is kind of resolved really quickly and without a lot of like conversation. So I remember I got to like nearing the end and I was like, oh, like I wonder how this is going to be resolved. And then I looked at how much time I had left in the audiobook and it was like 15 minutes, and I'm like, how is this going to be resolved in 15 minutes? I was so confused. I was like, that just doesn't sound right to me. That doesn't sound like that should be happening. I feel like we should have at least another hour left of this book. So the ending just kind of felt really awkward and stilted and way too fast. But overall, it was like a really cute, lighthearted read. I don't know if I would completely recommend this book. Like, it wasn't bad or anything. It just wasn't the best. And the very last book that I ended up reading in the month of May, I did finish it in like the first hour of June, so I am counting it for May. And that is Really Good Actually by Monica Heisey. I don't remember how to pronounce her last name, but this is an adult literary fiction-y kind of book. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I did actually really like this book, and I know that it has a pretty low average rating on Goodreads. It's currently at a 3.19, which I am definitely in the sort of unpopular opinion of actually kind of liking this book. The entire book is kind of a stream of conscious narrative of this main character who is going through a separation with her husband, and she is not taking it well. She is not taking it well. She is losing it. She just has a lot of feelings about this separation. She's in her 20s. She feels like she shouldn't be separating from her husband this young. She is going through a lot. She doesn't really feel connected to her job. She doesn't feel connected to her friend group. She has so much like anxiety about everything, and I don't know. I really liked this book. I thought that the main character was really interesting, and she was kind of like a horrible, fun mirror version of myself and like things that I know about myself. But I do feel like what really hindered this book at the end of the day was the fact that it was 10 hours long. I think that it should have been 5 to 6 hours long. There was a lot of stuff that I felt could have been condensed or cut out completely, and it just went on for way too long towards the end. But I don't think that this book is going to be for everybody. I think that this is going to have a very niche and specific audience, and yeah, it's just not going to be for everybody. And so I understand why a lot of people did not like this book, because the main character is really out there. She has a lot of opinions. She is not doing well at all. She's like very mentally ill, and that's just not going to be everybody's cup of tea, especially if you are well adjusted and are not mentally ill. This probably will not resonate with you at all. You'll be like, this is just too weird. This is just too much. and I totally understand that. This is not going to be everybody's kind of book. But if you are unhinged like me, if you are mentally ill like me, and you're in your late 20s, this book is going to be for you. This book is for you. It totally reminds me of the song from Taylor Swift. Okay, it reminds me of two songs. It reminds me of Hits Different by Taylor Swift, and it also reminds me of You're Losing Me. And because the way that I see the song You're Losing Me, it feels a little unhinged. It feels a little like unreliable narrator. It feels a little like maybe you're losing it instead of he's losing you. You're losing it. Like, it reminds me of the lines from You're Losing Me, the I wouldn't marry me either pathological people pleaser who only wanted you to see her. That. But then also from Hits Different, like, you're the one that I love. Don't need another metaphor, it's simple enough. A wrinkle in time like the crease by your eyes. This is why you shouldn't kill off the main guy. Dreams of your hair and your stare and your sense of belief in the good in the world. You once believed in me. And then like the and I could still melt your world. Argumentative, antithetical dream girl. Like, those lines are so really good, actually. So maybe if you like those songs, you might really enjoy this book. But yeah, I did end up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it. It just wasn't like a favorite of all time, and I think that there were some issues. But overall, I had a good time reading it, and it definitely kind of put a little bit of a mirror to my face. Okay, so those were all the books that I read in May. This took me so long to get through this list of 9 books. I don't know why. I think it's because I'm a little bit hungry, and so I'm feeling a little scatterbrained at the moment. But I do hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below some of the books that you read in May, or if you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought. I would love to hear your opinions on these books. So yeah, I had a really interesting May reading month. I hope that June is somewhere near as interesting, because so far, not so good. So definitely keep my reading month in your thoughts, please and thank you. Thoughts and prayers for me. Anyway, so I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Storygraph, TikTok. All the links for me down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you.